Hi, and welcome to Education Roundtable. My name is Larry Petricaro, and I'm here with Anthony Campilia. Anthony is a teacher here at CHS and is also the executive director of the CCN News, right?
Yeah, executive producer.
Executive producer of the
CCN,
CCN
yeah.
News. Anthony's been here at CHS for 17 years, and a rather interesting journey, I think, in the way he got here to teach. He originally started out in the industry, and before that, he had a little college experience, which I think we're going to ask him to tell us about. So let's get a little bit of background. So, Anthony, if you could give us a little bit of background.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here, Larry, number one. And yeah, it was kind of a, not the usual teacher route. I didn't go to college for it and then immediately graduate out of high school from it and then boom, just became a teacher. When I graduated high school, I initially went to Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't thinking about colleges. One of my friends, I guess he was a junior when I was a sophomore, he had gone to Syracuse, after his senior year, and he loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we would talk, just randomly, if he was back home for Thanksgiving or whatever, he would rave about it. And I have to go. He would tell me, I have to go there. I have to go there. It's the best place. You have to go. And I was like, all right, okay. And we were into kind of some of the same stuff. We were both, in the TV program at our high school, and we had a little TV show that we did, kind of like a Wayne's World almost there, that we were both a part of. So when it came time for senior year, well, Syracuse was, I guess, my first choice. I had some other colleges in mind, but I put Syracuse at the top. And I applied early into Newhouse. I got in, and I said, well, okay, that's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Sight unseen. And then I went to visit Syracuse in the spring. Beautiful. Campus was great, and I said, this is going to be awesome. When I went up freshman year, and it started to snow, I can't remember exactly how early, but it just continued to snow, and it didn't stop snowing. And I'm not a cold weather person, Larry. I'm not. I know I'm in, kind of northern New Jersey, but that's not that cold. Syracuse is that cold, and I just couldn't do it. It was not my thing. So I realized, I can't stick it out 4 years here. I'm going to be miserable. So I ended up transferring, and I applied to a few other schools, just kind of safeties and that sort of thing. But so I ended up going to Rutgers for my sophomore year. And I thought in my head, well, if I'm going to leave one of the best communication schools in the country to go to Rutgers, maybe I shouldn't be a communications major anymore. At Syracuse, I was a TV, radio, film major.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I kind of feel bad not doing that if I could do it there. So I ended up changing my major, and I was a math major with an education minor.
Oh, okay.
I was going to be a school teacher.
Okay.
I also realized pretty quickly that I had reached my ceiling in math. I would sit in classes like, non-linear differential equations and abstract math, reasoning, law, theory, and I would just be completely, I might as well have been in a foreign country, not speaking the language, because I had no idea what was going on. Well, I had to get out of that. I ended up changing my major back to communications, and I graduated from Rutgers with a BA in mass media and journalism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that, I don't know if it's a circle or a complete, or not quite a 360, or maybe a little bit more than a 360, a 720, but that's how I ended up starting to work in the TV news business. I spent about 10 years working in the TV news business. I started at a local cable station down in Piscataway, right outside of Rutgers. where I had interned during my, I guess junior year. And we did everything from shows like this, but also we did a nightly newscast 5 days a week. We covered a lot of sporting events, high school. We covered some Rutgers, women's basketball. We covered a lot of. We did do some Rutgers football. Rutgers football wasn't really as big time as they are now, even though the record doesn't show it. But I did everything and everything there. From camera work to editing to on-air anchoring and reporting, all of it. I spent 4 years there, and then I moved on to the Fox News Channel, where I spent 4 years as a writer and then a producer. And it was really there that I started to, I guess, learn more about, the importance of the behind the camera. Everybody thinks about TV, all they think about is the people that they can see right in front of the camera there. But, there is so much more that goes into it, and so many more people that go into just one broadcast, And I think that was the place where I first learned really how much more there come together. There were also some moments at Fox that I'll never forget working. I was there for 9/11. That will never go away from me, being there that day. Mm-hmm. But after Fox, then I moved on to the ABC network, and I worked there as a producer for about, I'd say, 2.5, almost 3 years, mostly in their digital news platform. So that was something where then I learned something new, where, okay, news isn't just when you turn on the TV and you watch the, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock news. Now it's going online and you're catching, news stories that are, ready on demand. It's just sitting there for you and waiting, and now you just push the button, you're downloading a whole litany of stories and material, where if you miss the news at 5, now, here it is. Yeah. So it was just more, every step along the way, I just learned a little bit something new, and that was great. I was very, that's what kind of kept me going in there. My brother, I should say, is a math teacher, and he's been a math teacher since he graduated from college. He's 4 years older than me. So the job at his high school was opening up mid-year. The gentleman was retiring. So when I was talking to my brother, he had said, hey, let me put you in touch with my principal. Maybe, who knows, you could be the TV guy here. Mm-hmm. I spoke to his principal, found out what I needed to do, had to get my provisional certification, fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, and get some, character references and things like that. By the time I got my provisional certification, his high school had hired someone because they needed to fill the position mid-year. So that summer, I said, well, now that I got this little piece of paper, let me just see what I can do. And I applied to a bunch of districts that were offering, TV jobs. South Orange Maplewood was one of them. They were one of the districts that offered me a job. And I remember my wife saying to me that I really need to make a decision because they're waiting on me. If I'm going to take it, take it. If I'm not, tell them, because they need to find someone to fill this position. And I said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to take it. Now, I think I'm just going to stay at ABC and look around there and, maybe look somewhere else. But I don't think I'm going to take the teaching job. I woke up the next morning and I called the woman who interviewed me, Miss Marge Mingan. I don't know.
Name sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's been retired a while now. Yeah, and I took the job, and that was some 17 years ago, and I really haven't looked back since. Yeah, best decision I ever made. Instructional design.
What
yes.
is instructional design?
It's real. In the simplest terms, I would say when I'm designing lessons, Everybody is a different type of learner.
Okay.
So it's kind of adapting what I want to get across to the students in the best way that each student can grasp and learn and take away from. Some people are very visual, some people, are not visual. So I may have to tweak my lessons and my assignments so that, I for one, am a very visual learner, So someone just getting up there and lecturing to me doesn't really work as great as if I can kind of get my hands dirty, which is one of the reasons I love TV too, because we kind of get our hands dirty here. It's more of a project-based class, and it's not just me for 45 minutes, up at the whiteboard, kind of lecturing and spitting out calculus equations, because I certainly couldn't do that. But that's really, I would say, the easiest way for me to describe it.
No, it's a reasonable description. I mean, and it sounds like it was more directly related.
Oh yeah,
aspect
yeah,
and
absolutely.
so forth.
Yeah.
Do many of the schools in New Jersey have a TV program like we do here, or is this rare, or is this common?
I would say it's more common now than it was in the past. I know my high school, we did. It wasn't nearly as big as what Columbia here has. I mean, I remember we had it was probably less the size. Our classroom was less size than this studio, and that's where we had everything. In this corner, we had our studio, in this corner, we had our editing lab, where we had basically not even a computer back then. It was, a couple of VHS decks and some TVs, and then we had the classroom back there. So it was, I would say less rare back then, but I think nowadays it's a lot more popular in school districts.
Well, when you're teaching students, the change, I mean, the practical experience you had has to have been, I got to assume, has to be very valuable. The technology probably has changed, but I suspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's elements of what you had to do that are unrelated to the type of technology that is available. Is that right? Wrong?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I always thought, based on my days working in the industry, when I was at that cable station in Piscataway, like I said, we did a lot of different things, and we had to, because we were very small and there were only so many of us. So we had to do, wear every hat. But when I was at Fox, when I was at ABC, I was more on the producing end of it. So I was, putting stories together and working with editors, working with the reporters and the photographers and all that. So the technical end of it was taken out of my hands. So for a while, there was no technical part of what I was doing. I was working with those people, but I wasn't doing it myself. So when I came here, that's one of the first things that I talked about with the students. Here was my experience, and here's what I did. And, I'm here to try and talk to you as best I can. Yeah.
Cut. We're going to have to take a break.
No.
I always wanted to say that, cut. So anyway, if you'll stay with us, we'll be back in a minute.
In America, millions of families are facing hunger. Many are forced to choose between food and other necessities.
I'm stuck between paying for medications or paying for food. John from Maine. After rent and power, I can get groceries. It's sad to say food comes last. Anna from Texas.
The Feeding America network of food banks helps provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year.
I thought pantries were for less fortunate people.
But anybody could be less fortunate in a day or even a second. Claire from Virginia.
Now I can provide food for my family again. It's not a handout, it's a hand up. Liam from Ohio.
No one should have to worry where their next meal will come from. Together, we can end hunger. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, and welcome back to Education Roundtable. This is Larry Petricaro with Anthony Campilia. And we were talking about the road that Anthony took to get here to CHS and the practical experience he had at Fox and at ABC and in Piscataway. So you were saying at the just before the cut that as you were growing through those ranks, you began to have less to do with the technology, in the sense that I guess you didn't have to lug the cameras around, but you had more to do with the production of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
The production. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, when I was at the cable station in Piscataway, and I'm just gonna, it was initially TKR and then became TCI before I left. So that'll be easier to say TKR. We had to do everything because we were a very small group. So there wasn't just, one person who was, well, I'm just the anchor or I'm just the, camera, woman. We had to do it all because we had to. But when I went to Fox and when I went to ABC, obviously much bigger operations. And for my role, I started as a writer at Fox and then became a producer and then went to ABC and I was a producer. So the tech end of it for me was then taken out because I was working with the people in those positions, the editors, the photographers. So it was more about storytelling and putting a good story together for any, news packages, or if it was just a read for, whatever show we were doing, it was about writing a news story. So, that end of it continued for as long as I was working there. The tech end kind of got taken out. And I still, would, like I say, as I sat there and worked with them, would try to keep up on some things. But, if I wasn't doing it, and like I said earlier, I'm more of a visual type learner, so I want to get my hands dirty. If I wasn't getting my hands dirty with the editing, it just kind of blew past me. So, did I miss it? Absolutely. But
You enjoyed that,
I wasn't going to,
part,
I wasn't going to, rock the boat so much.
Well, you've had exposure to that business for probably more than 10 years, and, working in the industry in another 17 years here. So, we're talking, quarter of a century, so to speak. I mean, the kinds of changes that you've seen over that time, have they been just making things easier, or do they make things more difficult in a different sort of way?
I would say easier, just because, kids can now just take their phone out here and they can film something on that and edit it right on that. I have in my intro classes, a lot of students do that. They use their phones to film and to edit their projects. As they get into more of the advanced classes, that's when we'll start using more of the, advanced equipment. But I think it's a lot easier. There's also a lot more platforms that are made available to these students now that they can use.
Well, does that allow them not to know as much as you had to know, for example? And I don't mean on the technical aspect of it, but the ability to film something with a phone and to edit on a phone, is there something that's lost that you have to reintroduce to them?
Well, I think the main thing, and this is something that I try to come across on day one with every new class that I get, I think it all starts with a good story. And you have to have that writing first. So even when, students are complaining about writing an essay for their English class or something, and I'm like, remember, it's about a good story, because so much of what we do is based right around the writing that we do. And you can get, so far by being a good writer. So I want to push that to them as much as I can.
The writing part
of it. Because if they have a good story, if they have a good script, then whether they're filming on their phone or whether they're filming on, one of our, HD cameras, it's all going to come out great. One may look a little bit better than the other, obviously, although the cameras on these phones nowadays are a hell of a lot better than, what some cameras you get. But, you need a good story first. You need a good script. You need those skeletons, those bones to, kind of build up.
So how do you teach that, or do you coordinate that with the English department? I don't know how this stuff works.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's really no coordination with the English department that we've done in the past. I mean, we have done some things with the Colombian, the newspaper here at the school, and the students, and a lot of times students that I have are also on the Colombian staff, so that kind of works well together. We have kind of like those go-betweens, where if they're working on a good story, that then we can kind of contribute, and vice versa. They can help with the story for our end, and we can help with maybe putting a little video, some pictures to what they're doing. But it's just a matter of talking to them right in the beginning, and some of the first projects that we do I try to keep them relatively small. One of them is as simple as a day in the life in 60 seconds. And it's just, I want your day in the life in 60 seconds. And obviously, maybe you can't combine everything that you did in your entire day in a minute. So you want to pick and choose what you want to highlight, what you want to focus on, and trying to then, stack it all out and make it flow from starting to the end. Well,
if you're talking about that as like something that would be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're doing that in 60 seconds, how much filming is actually involved before you get those 60 seconds?
It's actually, and I know a lot of the students when I pitch this, project out to them, they think like, oh, it's only a minute, that's easy. One of the first things I say, oh yeah, stare at the clock for a minute and see how long it is. It's a lot longer than you think, number one. And number two, you want to make it good, right? You don't want to make it, boring. So think about all the things that you do. And before you even pick up, whether it's your phone or a camera, or anything like that, you need to lay out all the things that you want, all the things that you do. And then, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. But I want to highlight this one and that one, and now let's, get it to flow. What makes it, kind of go from beginning to end? Do you want to start low and then, peak and then, come down, going to bed? How do you want to make it go? And again, it's just all about them getting, thinking about what it is, the project at hand.
And when you're providing that kind of instruction or that kind of incentive, or at least trying to get them to do this together, is there anything that the students tend to find difficult or surprising?
Yeah, I mean, there are sometimes there will be those students who say, I don't know what I do in a day. And I'm like, well, no, you do know what you do in a day. One of the other projects that I do for my intro classes is my me video. And that's basically just 10 facts about you. And I get students who say, I can't think of 10 things about me. I'm like, come on, you really can. Because they could be, and I tell them this, they could be anything. Do you have a pet? Do you not like dogs or cats? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Do you not have any brothers or sisters? I mean, it's not, I'm not pigeonholing them into one thing. It's just, the floor is theirs. So I just want them to start thinking and getting creative again. And then we build up the projects from there. So, sometimes there are those, students who need a little bit of a push or some coaxing to, get moving in the right direction. But, we always work it out.
It's interesting that you use the word creative, and I just wanted to ask you about that. It sounds like much of what your program and teaching is asking the students themselves to be creative, and even something as much as picking 10 facts about themselves. Do they find they're creative like naturally, or is that something that they have to actually work at?
Some of them are naturally creative. I mean, there have been some outstanding students come through the TV program here, from the day I started to, right up until now. And then there are students who need that push. Like I said, they don't feel creative, or it's something completely new to them, so they get worried and they start to freak out a little bit. And the one thing that I always stress in all my classes is, this is a stress-free zone. Come on, we're not, there's no AP test that we're studying for, and it's TV production, and we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna learn some things, but let's just relax a little bit, and we're gonna have some fun. But some of them need, like I said, that that extra push, or extra point in the right direction, or a little bit of help here and there, and a lot of times that's the most fun for me. Yeah. Because I can sit down with them and kind of really work one-on-one. Whereas somebody else may hear the project and see it up there when I design it, and it's like, all right, good, I don't need you anymore. And that's fine too. That's fine too. But a lot of times I get the most satisfaction from those students who need that extra push.
Yeah, that personal attention.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, is there like an objective that you expect all the students to know? Like if you're teaching math, you probably expect them to know how to add by the end of the year, right? Is there anything like that in the program?
Not really. No, I mean, I don't think so. I want them to take away. Yeah, I guess there are some certain tech issues that maybe little hints here and there that they can use down the road. Not everyone is going to be a TV major in college. Mm-hmm. They're not all going to go on to major in, TV or film or anything like that. Some of them are just here, it's an elective, it sounded fun, and yeah, let's take it. And I want to make that fun for them, mm-hmm. And some of the other students who really have a passion for it, moving forward with it, then we can sit down a little bit more, or we can kind of give them a little bit more. Or a lot of times it's, okay, you know what, I need you to go help, so-and-so, because they need a little extra help. And you'd be surprised, a lot of the students will jump at that chance. They love to help their,
the fellow students.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a good way for them to learn. I mean, sometimes it's when you know something really well, you do it intuitively. Right. And then you're asked to explain how it happens and so forth. Not so easy. We only have about a minute left, Anthony. Okay. If you can answer, are there roughly what percentage of the kids in the class go on to study TV and production? That's one question. Any notable graduates that we might even be aware of from watching television? And are there any things like internships that you have? You have 30 seconds. No.
Okay. Well, the most notable graduate who's come through the TV program was before my time, and that's obviously Zach Braff.
Okay.
But we have had some others who have gone on. I had one student who ended up working for a production company that ended up getting picked up through Disney. He was working on their new Mickey Mouse Club, which unfortunately I don't think went anywhere. But it's at least a foot in the door there. And we had some others who started off and now opened up their own film business.
Okay.
As far as percentage of how many students go on, I'm trying to think. I would say it's at least, I don't want to pinpoint a number, but
that's okay.
I'd say it's always maybe 25% of the students that I have in the upper advanced classes, the CCN classes. I would say it's about 25% who definitely move on and are focused on majoring on this in college.
I think we're going to have to call it a day.
Okay.
We're just about out of time. So the final piece of information you could pass on to the kids, if they want to go to Syracuse, be prepared for snow.
And I say this for warm weather too. I said, if you want to go to, Miami, hey, if you don't like the hot weather, go when it's hot. And if you don't like the cold, go visit a place when it's cold. Because if you can, survive it when it's at its worst, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us on Education Roundtable, and thank you, Anthony, for spending time
with us.
Larry.
Thank you.